And in Tamil, there is a saying, the Siddhars, they say, unave marundu, marunde unavu. Unavu means food, and that itself is the medicine. And I think Anita is a very good example in advocating for that. And I'm very happy and honored to invite Anita Reddy. I think many of you already know her. I got to know her, and I'm very happy to have made her acquaintance. And she's a board certified nutrition consultant who runs her own consulting practice where she guides her clients one-on-one on health and nutrition. Some conditions she's come across so far with her clients include pre-diabetes, diabetes, PCOS, high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, GERD, menopausal issues, and thyroid issues. Today, she'll be specifically talking about women's health and how nutrition and lifestyle interventions can support this. Just an aside about Anita, she's an IITian and an amazing mom of two girls. She's the most ideal person to talk about nutrition because she has gone after her passion of learning and helping everyone with nutrition and good health. I'll let Anita take over. Go ahead.
Thank you, Maha, for that beautiful introduction. Hello, everybody. Wish you all a very, very happy New Year. And I am so happy to be with all of you this evening and to talk about a very interesting subject. And I think it's a good pick to begin the new year, a fresh start for us to get more aware of what our systems are like, what our hormones look like, and what are we really? Is it what we see externally, or is there much more going on the other side? And how can we make that connection? And how can we truly understand what's happening? Because I think without that understanding, it's very difficult to really make a beginning anywhere. Because in my experience with clients, what I've encountered is everybody is so stressed and busy all the time, and we only understand as much as what we see. We understand hair fall, we understand headaches, we understand irritability, we understand maybe things of larger magnitude like pain in the abdomen or aches and pains. But do we really understand why all that is happening and how are we different from our counterparts? So I'll give you a very interesting example. I have come across not one, so many couples who come to me and say, you know what, we went on a diet. We decided we're going to start afresh and do something about our health. My husband lost 10 pounds. I barely got to 2 or 3. Why is that? And it's such a frustration when you start comparing yourself with the person next to you. It could be your husband. It can also be another woman who's of a different age group altogether. So even when we talk about women, we are so different in different phases of our life. So this webinar is about getting a deeper understanding of what are we before 40, after 40, and beyond. And yeah, so let's make a beginning with our presentation today. So these are the key topics we would cover. First is, of course, our monthly cycle. I think getting a sound understanding on what really happens during our month, what are the hormones that come into play will give us a more clear-cut idea into what is menopause and perimenopause and what we are going through. So, oh, I love the second one. Being a healthy woman isn't about getting on a scale or measuring your waistline. Like I said earlier, we think that's the beginning and end of our situation. How much do I weigh? Do I fit into a particular number? And then we stop defining ourselves beyond that. We need to begin to understand that being healthy is about feeling energetic. It's about feeling happy and being in control of the situation. So that's what today's webinar is going to be all about. Right. So when we talk about the hormonal phases we go through, we have three, as you're all aware. We have our fertile period, we have our perimenopause period, and then we have the menopause period. So fertility is obviously when we have maybe from the time of puberty till we reach 52 or 53 or 55, that entire window we can be called fertile. We can also conceive during a menopausal period. Let's understand what we go through in our 28-day cycle or 35-day cycle. For some people, it's 35 days. For some people, it's 30 days. For some people, it's 32 days. It's very important to have a consistency. It can be a different number, but it should be the same number every month for that particular person. It's a different number across, like one woman can have it every 28 days, another woman could be having it every 35 days. But then you should be kind of consistent with that cycle. A great way to measure that is write down your dates somewhere or use an app to track your cycle, because this is a very big marker to tell us if things are going out of line. When you go to your OBGYN, that's the first question they'll ask you. When was your last cycle? How consistent is it? What are your symptoms? How do you feel when you have your monthly cycle? So it's very important that we are more cognizant and more aware of what we go through in that period. I understand we have a lot more to track, but this is definitely important to track.
ಲಿಂಕ್ ಅದು ನೋಡು Zoom ಕಾಲ್ ಏನೋ ಬರ್ತದೆ.
All right. So day 1 to day 4. Now what you see over here, the blue line is your estrogen surge and the orange line you see here is the progesterone surge. So primarily we have 3 sex hormones we're talking about. We have our estrogen, we have our progesterone, and we have our testosterone. Now, estrogen plays a key role in supporting many functions in the body, other than just pregnancy, which we're going to talk about. But we also have estrogen supporting our muscular health, our bone health, our cardiovascular health. So estrogen plays a key role in many other aspects of our system. But over here, we're talking about estrogen in terms of our ovulation. So your ovaries release an egg. And what estrogen does is there's a surge from day 4 to day 14. There's a surge in estrogen, and that helps in thickening the lining of our uterus, which we also called endometrium, to prepare the body for pregnancy. So during day 1 to day 4, if you see, both estrogen and progesterone are not really at their peak. They're kind of rising, but it's a very, very slow rise. Day 4 to day 14, if you observe, you have your estrogen rising. And this is the period when women start feeling really happy, confident, energetic. You feel like you own the world, you own the stage, you can do it all. That's estrogen making you feel that way. And then comes day 14, and then you see there is slowly your progesterone starts going up and your estrogen starts coming down. So progesterone is another hormone, and this is used to prepare the lining for a fertilized egg. So the first hormone, estrogen, is just thickening the lining of the uterus. Progesterone is getting prepared in case there's a fertilized egg that is going to implant and grow. So progesterone is kind of prepping your body for a possible pregnancy. All right. So you see estrogen coming down and you see progesterone going up. The reason I'm explaining you this is because we need to understand how estrogen and progesterone are related to each other. They are like inversely proportional if you observe how they function. Day 14 to day 28, you see progesterone rising, and a week before your period, somewhere over here, your estrogen starts dropping. So there is no pregnancy happening. Your progesterone is going to dip, and at day 28, you start your menstrual cycle again. This 1 week before you have your period, if you see when your your progesterone starts dipping, this is when we experience our PMS. Now, the reason for experiencing PMS, for feeling irritable, for having abdominal cramps is because, and this is so important to understand, we don't support our body by eating for that period. So when your progesterone dips, you need to eat foods that are high in progesterone. We are going to go through this towards the end of the webinar on how you can support your body in different phases of the cycle. What do you do from day 1 to day 4? This is like a detox phase in the body. Day 4 to day 14, when your estrogen rises, what can you do? Day 14 to day 28, what can you do to support your body with respect to estrogen? In a way, we need to understand our cycle so that we can eat for that cycle. I don't think we eat for our cycle. We eat as per our whims and fancies or the stress that we are going through. We just eat because we cook, we eat whatever is available. We eat when we're out, we're going and partying. But do we really eat, keep taking into consideration which part of the cycle we are in? I don't think so. So this is like a very conscious effort we need to make in understanding where we are in our cycle and eat in accordance with that. What are the kind of symptoms we have during menopause? Now, first of all, what is menopause? So when you hit the age of 40, what's happening is your ovaries, which were releasing estrogen, which were doing a certain duty, it needs to now go into retirement. It's practically going to retire. If your ovaries need to retire, they need to hand over the job to somebody else in the body. And they look at adrenals for that. Adrenal glands are 2 glands. They sit on top of your kidneys and they kind of take over from ovaries. Now, will the ovaries go into retirement like a switch on, switch off mode? Does it happen overnight? It does not. It takes a good 10 to 15 years. It can start at 40 and can all the way go up to 52, 55, depending on your genes, depending on your lifestyle. You don't know how long that journey is going to be. For some people, the journey may be smooth, and for some people, it may be a very bumpy ride if they have not taken care of their health before that. So if you've been on a roller coaster right from your teens to 20s to 30s because of education, career, starting a family or whatever, you've already worn out your adrenals. Adrenals are the organs which help you handle stress. And if you've already gone through a lot of stress, you're kind of tanked down on what your adrenals can do. And when your ovaries finally say, "Here, take over from me," your adrenals are like, "I'm tired. I already did so much. I'm so tired. I cannot do this job properly." And that is when we see that ride getting bumpy because you don't have anybody to your rescue. And you are hitting that phase of life, the perimenopausal phase, where you need support and you don't know where to get it from. Am I clear so far? Yeah, a nod of heads. All right. So we are in perimenopause now. What are some of the most common signs and symptoms we see? Women tend to gain a lot of weight in their hips, buttocks, thighs. We see a lot of weight accumulation over there. We get irritable. We may have trouble sleeping, very intolerant to stress, anxiety. I see a lot of that in my clients. Prone to injuries, hip injuries, knee injuries. I can't sit at my computer for too long. I have neck pain. I used a different pillow and I got up with some kind of soreness. So this is very common. And we're going to address that as well, why that happens. Hot flashes, vaginal dryness, low libido, and a hormonal belly. How many of you felt that, why do I look pregnant? Why do I feel my tummy is like popping up like a balloon? And does it stay that way? It doesn't. It keeps going up and down all through the month because you're bloating. And that is a clear sign that we have some kind of a hormonal imbalance when it comes to estrogen and progesterone. Now, to understand perimenopause better, we need to understand other hormonal patterns in the body. So we are so far clear on what estrogen does, what progesterone does, and how our cycles look, before 40 or even when we start our perimenopause. They fairly go the way they're supposed to go, like the graph that we just looked at. We have other hormones in the body, and we want to understand how they work in relation to our sex hormones. So let's look at insulin resistance. I'm sure most of you have heard of the hormone insulin and what it does. But just to give you a short review of what insulin is. So when we eat food, we all are aware that that food needs to convert into sugar. And that is the sugar that your body utilizes so that you can do your daily chores, you can think, you can you can, do whatever you really do. Your body needs that energy, and that comes from the food you eat. So we put something in our mouth, the taste buds understand what food is coming in. Is it a carbohydrate? Is it a fat? Is it a protein? Your taste buds understand the food that's coming in, send a signal to your brain. Your brain sends a signal to pancreas and says, hey, I have potato chips coming in. So there's lots of sugar that's going to come into the body. Are you ready to release insulin? And then there's an insulin spike. What this insulin spike does is it takes care of that sugar coming in, takes it to the cell wall, so how does your body utilize that sugar? Your cells basically have to open the door and let the sugar in so that your mitochondria, the powerhouse inside of that cell, can utilize that energy, utilize the sugar and convert it into ATP, which is what your body uses to do its regular stuff. So insulin comes there, there's an insulin spike, the cell wall opens, sugar goes in, ATP is released. Great. This is in a very typical situation. This is what insulin does for us. It's great to have insulin, and that is called being insulin sensitive. A person who has that insulin balance, that insulin sensitivity, will be able to do this entire function of having that insulin spike and making sure that your cells open up and utilize the sugar. When this happens on a repeat mode, so you've eaten 3 meals a day, fine, you have 3 insulin surges. But say, for example, you had breakfast in the morning at 8 o'clock, and 10 o'clock you felt sleepy and felt like having a coffee or a tea with some cookies. And then 1 o'clock you go out for a meal. And then 4 o'clock you have another snack. And in between you see some chocolates or you see some grapes and you kind of pop them into your mouth just because they're in front of you. And then you have dinner in the night and then you're watching a movie and you want to have popcorn or some ice cream or whatever. So if there is continuous eating, there is a continuous spike of insulin. That itself is a clear indication that our body can run into inflammation sometime in the future. Constant eating, constant insulin spikes. Now, constant eating can happen because of a number of reasons. It can also happen because we already have a hormonal imbalance. We could be having cravings because of those hormonal imbalances, and so we feel like eating. It could be because of other reasons as well, stress eating. So that is a whole different area that we want to address, but yes, we will talk about that a little as well later on. So when this insulin spike happens on a regular basis, your cell wall says, you have been coming too often to me. I'm not going to open my door anymore to you. My door is shut. I'm full of sugar. I'm not opening the door. It's just like the story where the boy calls wolf all the time, right? He does it so often that the villagers stop responding. They say that he's just going to keep lying and, we don't want to go and rescue him. And one day he's eaten by the wolf, right? This is exactly the same story. Your cells say, I'm not opening the door. And that is when you say you have become insulin resistant, as in you have insulin, your body is making insulin. This is type 2 diabetes. That's the direction we're going towards. You have insulin, but you're insulin resistant. If your body doesn't make insulin at all, then that's type 1, where you have to kind of inject insulin into your body because we need insulin. All right. So insulin resistance, what this is doing is it's all about blood sugar dysregulation. So where does that sugar go now? It has to go somewhere. It can't sit there lying in your bloodstream because that's not good for your eyes. It's not good for your arteries. It kind of starts plaquing its way through, and that's not good. It needs to go somewhere, and that's when the liver says, give it to me. I'm going to kind of hold on to that sugar. I'm going to convert that into fat, and I'm going to store it over here so that you can use it when you need to. Use it when you need to is basically how our bodies evolved, because we historically have gone through these periods of famine or floods where we never had access to food. We are probably stuck in our cave with no access to food. The weather is bad, there's a storm, and you're stuck there for a week to 10 days without any food, and your body still has to function. You still need your brain to function, you still need your heart to function. And where is the food going to come from? It's the liver that comes to the rescue. It says, I stored that fat so that I can use it in this period when we don't have any access to food. Our bodies still function the same way. our liver still holds on to those extra calories or the extra sugar that we have, and it holds it for us so that we can use it on a rainy day. Unfortunately, the rainy day never happens because we don't give our body that chance. We have refrigerators, we have access to food, we have stores, and we have shopping centers. So there's constant access to food. We never, in fact, I feel there's a lot of anxiety around, for example, when we had our snow recently, we want to go and stock up. We might have a lot at home, but we still want to go stock up. So there is this psychological fear that we may run out of food, that constant urge to hoard food and eat regularly, because we feel if we don't eat regularly, we cannot survive. We have been conditioned to think that way in the last 40, 50 years because we had the food industry kind of coming in with a lot of convenience foods, cereals and stuff, which are always in front of us and easy to pack, easy to take along. And we feel, hey, I can't think, probably have low blood sugar. I need to eat energy bar so that I can start functioning again. So we kind of got into that mindset where we started thinking that we cannot function without food for more than 4 hours or 6 hours. We just need to eat. And we might need to eat, again, depending on if you're a woman and if you have a hormone cycle, maybe in that particular cycle, maybe you need to eat. But do you need to be doing that all the time? That is the bigger question that we need to understand. So insulin resistance can lead to blood sugar dysregulation, and this starts changing the body composition. So when we have insulin resistance, that is when we also see fat accumulation. First of all, it begins with the liver. So that's called visceral fat deposition around the organs, not good for the heart. We might also see fat deposition in other layers if you have the estrogen-progesterone imbalance, which we're going to address shortly. So what happens to estrogen and progesterone as you enter 40s? So like I explained earlier, estrogen and progesterone have a certain ratio that they've been operating by until you hit perimenopause. In perimenopause, what happens is your estrogen does reduce. You don't make as much. So does your progesterone. Now, what we feel is because my estrogen is low, I'm probably deficient in estrogen. Actually, that's not true because the amount of drop in progesterone is so much more in perimenopause, and we kind of ignore that component altogether. Because of that strong or heavy or that really big fall that our body has taken with respect to progesterone, we become estrogen dominant. We have more estrogen than we need. Again, over here, earlier I said estrogen is useful to the body. But what happens is when we make estrogen, our estrogen also needs to be metabolized. It's used up by the body. And after it's been used, we create what are called as end products or metabolites, which need to be excreted from the body. When we don't have good gut health, we can't excrete those metabolites, and the estrogen starts coming back into your bloodstream. So you have the estrogen surge, and then you have the progesterone drop. This imbalance between estrogen and progesterone is different from the kind of ratio that we maintained before perimenopause. And this is what throws us off with respect to our symptoms. So what do I take care of here? I take care of the progesterone. I have a really big dip in my progesterone. What do I do to take care of my progesterone? So you can do that when you eat for your cycle. If you eat foods that are rich in progesterone, if you support the body when it needs progesterone, you can take care of it. Another thing about low progesterone is when we don't have enough progesterone in the body. Like I said, if I go back to that earlier graph, the 1 week before your period, when you see this orange line slowly falling down, you see that drop in estrogen, drop in progesterone. What do you feel like doing? What do women usually say? We feel like eating chocolate. Chocolate probably is because they crave magnesium. Your body's saying, I want magnesium, and so you pick up chocolate. But are they, while dark chocolate is good for magnesium, do we all consume dark chocolate? Do we all look at the amount of sugar in the chocolate we're picking up to eat? Or do we look for other sources of magnesium, or do we stick to the chocolate? Because it's not just magnesium, your body also craves a lot of sugar. Sometimes people crave a lot of salt. So potato chips, ice cream, cakes, because they are more easily available. I think what's happening to us is we end up looking at the wrong foods when our progesterone starts dipping. And it's not our fault, because we are just listening to our body and we eat whatever is in our reach. So first of all, if we stock our kitchens with the right kind of foods, if you're aware of what are those good progesterone foods that we can eat in place of the baked products, in place of the potato chips, in place of regular chocolate, a little bit of dark chocolate is fine, we would make better choices in supporting that low progesterone phase. And this again affects the blood sugar, which means we are again going towards the insulin resistance phase, which means our body composition can change, which means there can be a microbiome shift. If there's a microbiome shift, it means we're not metabolizing our estrogen metabolites properly. Estrogen comes back into our bloodstream. Again, there is an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. So do you see that relationship on how these hormones are interlinked? Now, we're not done here. There's more to this. Then there's our thyroid gland. So a very sensitive organ again, endocrine organ, and it supports about 100 functions in our body. You want to bat your eyelid, you need thyroxine. You want a reflex action, you want to, something is about to fall off the table and I need to grab it. I need my thyroxine to be in level to be able to react to that. I want to focus and study something. I need my thyroxine. I want to be empathetic and listen and care for somebody. I need my thyroxine. If I am not in the right state of mind, I will not be able to extend that care. I will not be able to learn. I will not be able to kind of project myself the way I want to. It is such a sensitive hormone. It can be hyper, it can be hypo. So our endocrine system has this beautiful feedback loop. It's very interesting. When I don't have enough thyroxine in my body, my brain detects that, sends a signal to my the thyroid gland, which is situated here in the neck region, and your thyroid gland makes the amount of thyroxine that your body requires, and so the thyroxine level goes up in the blood. So your brain is constantly detecting, and then there is this feedback loop. There's a signal being sent to the gland, and then that communication system, it kind of goes in a loop where the hormone is released, and then your brain again detects and sends the signal back to the organ. So this kind of a loop, a communication loop, the reason we have that in place is to maintain a balance in the body. Your body wants to maintain that state of homeostasis. It wants to be in balance, and it's doing whatever it can do to make sure that your body runs, your system runs in a very balanced manner. When we don't have enough thyroxine, we call that a state of hypothyroidism. When we have more than what we should, we call that hyper. Usually, hypothyroidism has symptoms like fatigue. Speak to people with thyroid issues, they say, I can't get off the bed in the morning. I can't lift an arm. I can't lift a finger. It takes me a while to really start functioning. Most hypothyroid people say they get active post 12 p.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m. And maybe the reason for that is the sun. It really takes them a while to, start opening up and becoming active. They need the sun. And that fatigue can cause energy crash. Energy crash means going for more caffeine. And if you're having caffeinated beverages with sugar and dairy and not the wrong kind of, and if you don't have the right kind of dairy in your caffeine, that can again throw your hormones off, which also we're going to talk about a little later when we talk about meat and dairy products. So caffeine, excessive caffeine, again, will cause adrenal glands to get fatigued because they take care of our stress, and then excess of sugar intake because you're tired and you go in for sweets and caffeinated beverages with sugar, it will again lead to an insulin spike. You're again pushing yourself towards insulin resistance. So do you see that relationship between thyroid gland and insulin resistance? not having the right kind of foods, going into an estrogen progesterone imbalance. So this is the kind of relationship we see. So we've looked at insulin resistance, we've looked at estrogen, high estrogen, low progesterone, thyroid, and now coming to cortisol, a very, very important hormone. We need cortisol because when there is stress, when there is acute stress. So we have acute stress and we have chronic stress. Acute stress is called eustress or good stress. So short bursts of stress are actually good for the body. You have a cortisol release and you take care of that stress. The body repairs itself and you're actually in a better place. But when you have chronic stress, where that stress is kind of going on, it's there on an ongoing basis. It's never done. There's one thing after another. That's when we say we are in chronic stress. And then there is a surge of cortisol. Cortisol surge is there every time there is stress. Now, the organs that help us with cortisol production are the adrenal glands. And like I said earlier, when you enter 40s, the ovaries hand over the responsibility to the adrenals. And if you've already been stressed out throughout your life till then, your adrenals are also tired and they say, sorry, I cannot help you. I can't take over the job of making estrogen and progesterone because your ovaries start shutting down and your adrenals take up the responsibility of making estrogen and progesterone. They still do make that even in your 40s until you hit menopause. You still have estrogen and progesterone, but your ovaries kind of start shifting the responsibility to the adrenal glands. And the adrenals, if they're in a great state, they will do the job. But if the adrenals are not in a great state, they say, I'm tired, I can't do this job. And you see what's happening here. The adrenals also help you release cortisol to take care of stress. You are in a high stress, in a state of a very stressful state in your 40s. And the other job of progesterone is it also releases cortisol. So what your body is now doing is it needs cortisol. The adrenals are not working anymore. It goes to progesterone and says, can you release some more cortisol so that I can take care of my stressful state? So your poor progesterone, which is already tanked, is tanked even more further. It goes down because now your body says, I'm stressed, I need cortisol. Can progesterone help me release cortisol? And so your progesterone dips even more. And then there is more imbalance between your estrogen and progesterone. So I hope, I know this is a little tricky, but I hope it's clear to you on how all these hormonal patterns are connected in the end to your estrogen and progesterone imbalance. I just wanted to kind of make that clear because it's not really about perimenopause alone. If we have in the audience teenagers, people who are in their 30s, I urge you to make sure that you take care of these aspects, the insulin resistance, the adrenal glands, the thyroid gland. If you take care of these, you will be in a better state in your perimenopausal phase because you have somebody to rescue you. But if you tank all these, your adrenals are already out of balance, your thyroid is already stressed out, you're already insulin resistant, and you are going towards blood sugar dysregulation or probably type 2 diabetes, your microbiome has already shifted, there's more chance that your perimenopausal phase is going to be a bumpy ride, will not be so smooth. So this slide is mainly to help us understand this connection between all the hormonal patterns that we go through. So this is what we've already covered in the earlier. I just explained you what is estrogen dominance. I have to explain one more thing about estrogen dominance here. So far we've been talking about the estrogen that our body makes, but there are a lot of products out there that mimic estrogen. They're called the xenoestrogens. So the food that we eat, if it's not organic, if there was a lot of usage of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides on that food, the hygiene products that we use, a lot of chemicals, you're exposed to a lot of chemicals, your pans and pots in your kitchen, your hygiene products, your perfumes, whatever you use, the more exposure you have to chemicals, it puts you in a state of getting into more estrogen dominance. Reason being, these xenoestrogens mimic estrogen. So we have estrogen receptors in our body. We have estrogen receptors everywhere. And those receptor sites are waiting for estrogen that your body produces, right? Those receptors are waiting for the estrogen to come from the one that your body makes. But if you are exposed to these chemicals and those xenoestrogens start entering your bloodstream, you have your receptor sites already blocked with these estrogen mimicking substances. And that puts us in that phase of being even more estrogen dominant. And that blockage is very dangerous because it is going to start shooting up our androgen production. Androgens are like the male hormones. And having a lot of androgens means you make more estrogen. And when you make more estrogen, you use an enzyme called aromatase. And that having more aromatase puts us in a state of probably having cancer in future. So it's not just estrogen that we make. It's more dangerous to be exposed to the chemicals and the dyes and the herbicides and insecticides that we probably are ingesting from the food or breathing through the air around us or exposed to it from the pans and pots we use or the hygiene products that we use. So it's very important to educate ourselves and our children to live a more clean life. So make better choices with what you eat and the products that you use so that you don't get into that phase of becoming estrogen dominant because of exposure to these xenoestrogens. And then, yeah, like we already discussed, more estrogen dominance means more deficient in progesterone because that ratio is disturbed even more. So what can we do to take care of progesterone? Like I said, dark chocolate is a good choice. Nuts, legumes, organic tofu, and avocado. So organic tofu or soybean, because soy is one of the most we call that genetically modified foods. You don't want to expose yourself to soy that has been sprayed with a lot of chemicals. So always better to go for clean soy products. So organic tofu, avocado, these are good foods. From the Indian context, go for all your nuts and seeds. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, they're all rich in magnesium. That's a good choice. Foods that are high in vitamin B6, so salmon, eggs, sweet potatoes, carrots. Zinc is another important mineral that we need to take care of. So shellfish, whole grains, mushrooms, and seeds. Avoid xenoestrogens that we just discussed about. Avoid processed foods. We know what that is. Alcohol, yes, for sure, must avoid. Reduce caffeine intake. Manage stress better. Eat natural carbohydrates week before your period. So this is a very interesting point to talk about. So while some of us are not aware, some of us are more in tune with the latest fad diets and trends that we see around us. So we see 10 people doing intermittent fasting. We say, okay, I'm going to intermittent fast too. And I can go 12 hours, I can go 14 hours, I can go 16 hours, I can go 18 hours, and I'm losing weight. You feel great, don't you? And you just keep at it. But what we don't realize is, we are probably losing that weight because, you're eating lesser calories, you don't have as much appetite anymore, and so you start losing weight. But after 3 months of weight loss, you see a sudden stall. The stall is because you haven't eaten for this progesterone dip, and you are losing weight because of the low calorie intake. But 3 months down the line, your estrogen and your progesterone dips even more. You start probably having your periods even before your 28 days. That is a very typical change we see in our perimenopausal phase. That's because we don't have enough progesterone. We've not been eating for our cycle. And then we see the weight plateaus, and we then start seeing a weight gain after that. So don't overdo the fat diets. Don't go for, very strong workouts is another big problem we see. Intense workouts, intense cardio, you really wear yourself out in the process, and you feel great because psychologically you feel you've achieved something when you do intense cardio, and that's great. But if there is no rest, if there is no recovery period, you are messing up with cortisol again. Because when you fast, it's a stress to the body. When you overfast, when you over-exercise, it's another stressful situation to the body. You're already in a lot of stress. Your cortisol is going to shoot up. Your adrenals are going to tank, and that is also not going to help with your low progesterone situation, like we discussed earlier. So eat natural carbohydrates week before your period. Your body really needs it. Natural carbohydrates are sweet potatoes and, the foods that we've discussed over here. Go in for whole grains and foods that are healthy, squash, whatever is in season, go for those vegetables and fruits. And then, yes, listen to your body and give yourself recovery time after exercise. What can we do for hormonal balance? Overall hormonal balance. Okay, here I would like to point out that most of us, men and women included, we do not take enough protein. We don't consume enough protein. Women more so. When you don't have enough protein, we are not satiated. And when we are not satiated, we reach out for the foods that are most easily available to us. And we are again putting ourselves in that situation of being insulin resistant. If we increase our protein intake, there is more, satiety, and there is better hunger control, which is also very important so that we don't run into these situations of being insulin resistant. How much protein should we be consuming? The minimum is at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of your body weight. That is the minimum. But if you're in a good state, I would say 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should at least be eating between 130 to 150 protein a day. And that's very difficult. It is very difficult to consume so much protein. And it's difficult because we're not in the habit of building our meals around protein. We've been in the habit of building our meals around the carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are great, but what do we do to increase protein so that becomes the central portion of our meal and the carbohydrate is on the side? Another important food that we need to increase is the fiber. Not having enough fiber again puts us in that situation where we can become estrogen dominant, because when you have enough fiber in the body, you have better bowel movements and you're able to remove those excess estrogens or the estrogen metabolites, and that will not mess up with our estrogen progesterone balance. What is good fiber intake? The average American over here, the research says, does not eat more than 15 to 20 grams of fiber per day. And what's the recommended intake? About 50 grams of fiber a day. So I would say that when it comes to protein, aiming to have 30 grams, 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, and about maybe 15 grams of protein or fiber per meal is probably what we should be looking at to bring that balance in. So focus more on protein, focus more on fiber. Fiber should be both soluble and insoluble fiber. We should include both when we talk of fiber intake. Water intake, yes, we should consume enough water, 2 to 3 liters based on the activity. If you're very sedentary and not sweating, you shouldn't be guzzling gallons of water. But being fairly active and consuming enough water is very important. Exercise, must exercise. One is staying active through the day. That's very important. So research says it's more than kind of going in for that specific exercise. People who have better health are those who are just active throughout the day, who are not like sitting continuously. They get up and they're kind of doing something in between, taking a short walk or taking your dog for a walk, going down the staircase, wherever you can, take the staircase, park your car a little away. That kind of activity is very, very important. Along with that, short bursts of strength training is very important. You don't want to do long workouts that tire you out and make you feel beaten and that you have to kind of rest. You just can't do anything after that. That's not how it should be. You should strength train, but short bursts of strength training, and slowly build yourself towards maybe slightly longer ones, once or twice a week. We don't have to do long strength training workouts every single day. Also, when you strength train, how are you planning your workouts? So on a particular day, if you do upper body, the next day should be lower body. One day you're doing total body, the next day you should do something like yoga or Pilates, which involves more strengthening using your own body weight. And that also involves stretching out, and that's very important as well for the body. So bringing in that balance with respect to exercise is very important. Reducing toxic load, like we discussed, the BPAs, the BHTs, the dyes, the MSGs, all these can increase the toxic load on the liver. And it's very important to maintain good liver health, because the liver is primarily responsible for detoxing our body, for taking away all those excessive hormonal metabolites and kind of pushing them out of the body. So the gut and the liver work together. So if your liver is already overloaded with, exposure to these kind of chemicals, it cannot do its job. And this also leads to that estrogen dominant situation, which causes issues like PCOS or early puberty. We did discuss this earlier. This happens because when you're exposed to these chemicals, there is more estrogen load, more estrogen dominant. We become more estrogen dominant, and that blocks our receptor sites, more androgen production, which are the male hormones. Androgens again convert into estrogen. They use aromatase. Aromatase is what we find in situations like, cancer, and we don't want that to be happening to us. And then PCOS and early puberty is also linked to that. Early puberty, there was a phase when we had early puberty at 13, 14, and then it went down to 11, and now it's down to 7, 8, 9. Reducing caffeine intake, very important. Again, we don't want to over caffeinate ourselves. It tanks our adrenal glands. And then there is high cortisol production, not good for the body, because you have, again, cortisol and progesterone is linked. You're going to bring down your progesterone even more. And then the ratio gets disturbed between estrogen and progesterone. Calories, do they matter? How many calories do I consume? Oh my God, everybody asks this question. What are my right calories? I think we shouldn't be focusing more on calories. We should focus on the macro that we're consuming. Am I consuming my protein, enough protein for the body? If I am consuming enough protein, your body automatically regulates the amount of calories you should be taking. So for example, if you're consuming 30 grams of protein, maybe it's about 4, 5, 600 calories, but then it's coming from a good source. It's coming from maybe something like fish. Maybe it's coming from something like moong dal or moong beans or kidney beans or garbanzo beans or chickpeas, whatever. Anything of that sort, nuts and seeds. Your protein is kind of putting you in a state of satiety, and you are not going to overconsume. You cannot have 100 grams of protein in that sitting, because you would have hit your satiety signals. Your leptin and ghrelin are in better communication, and they say, I'm done, I can't eat anymore. And you can experiment that for yourselves. Take a big piece of fish, or take a lot of paneer, and how much can you eat? You really cannot overeat that, like how you can overeat a bag of chips or some cheesecake or ice cream. You cannot overeat. So I think calories really, do they matter? They will not matter if you're making the right choices. Your body itself is going to regulate and tell you when to stop and when to start eating, because we have better ghrelin and leptin, which are the two hunger hormones. Again, it's a hormonal imbalance. Like I said earlier, in case of insulin resistance, when people say that I always feel like eating, well, you always feel like eating because there is an imbalance between your ghrelin and leptin, your hunger hormone and satiety hormone. Those signals are kind of messed up because maybe there's a gut imbalance, your microbiome is not doing well, or the liver health is not doing well. So all these work together. And if your hunger and if your hunger signals and satiety signals work well, your hunger hormones work well, then your calories actually don't matter. Also, they don't matter because when you start consuming lower calories, which I know is the fundamental way the world functions. Even now, you have a lot of gym instructors telling you, please eat less, move more, you will lose weight. But when you do that, you are going to tank your metabolism. Your furnace gets cold, you will not be able to burn as much. Your metabolic health is defined by the calories you burn at rest. So I'm sitting and I'm not doing anything, but if I'm still burning, it means I have great metabolism. The furnace needs to be, it needs to fire up. And when you start consuming lesser calories, your body says, okay, she's eating lesser food. Does that mean there is no food available? Because our body is still in tune with how it evolved. So our body just thinks that, okay, maybe there's no food coming in. Maybe there is a storm coming. And so there's no access to food. And maybe that's why the person is not eating enough. I am only getting 800 calories a day. And earlier I used to get some 2000 calories. So the body does its own math and it says, I'm going to conserve more. I'm going to hold on to that fact because I need to keep this person alive. They're eating very less. So that is the reason why low-calorie diets don't work, because after a certain period, your metabolism gets messed up and you don't burn as much. So when you were eating 2000 calories, maybe you were burning 600 calories. But when you eat 800 calories, you don't burn 600 calories, you're burning maybe 100 calories. So your body kind of goes into that conservative mode of trying to protect you. So low-calorie diets don't work. Calories, do they matter? Not really if you're making the right choices. They do matter if you are in the mode of eating a more carbohydrate-centric meal. So there's a lot of crackers and there's a lot of ice creams and there's a lot of white refined foods in your diet, then yes, it matters. If you're over consuming, you're ending up eating 2,500 or 3,000 calories a day, and you're not ready to make that shift into making better choices, yeah, then maybe it does matter. Fasting, does it work? Yes, it works great, but it works in very specific windows for women. So let's go back to this chart once to understand. Day 1 to day 4 is when your body is already in a detox phase, right? What it's doing for you is detox. This is a good time because both your estrogen and progesterone, you see that there's not really too much of a change happening. It's okay to fast. Very contrary to what people believe, they say, okay, you're menstruating, so maybe you should be overeating to compensate for what your body is going through. That's a very psychological conditioning that we have been taught, or we kind of picked it up looking at the people around us. It's not necessary to eat continuously. It's more important to hydrate ourselves, to rest, and eat the right kind of foods. So maybe fresh foods, raw foods, more refreshing foods. That's way more important. More protein intake. That's very important. You can fast. When I say fast, I don't mean all 4 days you fast. Intermittent fasting, where you eat in a specific period during the day. That's important. Maybe 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, depending on how you've built yourself, trained yourself to do that. So always 12 hours is a great place to start. So these 4 days are great. You can go on for maybe 3-4 days more, but then that's the time that your estrogen increases. So you need not fast as much. You can bring down your window. And then definitely in the last 1 week before your period is the time that you should really eat well to support the progesterone dip in your cycle. So do fast work. They work. You have to use that tool very effectively to cater to the needs of the body. But definitely don't ape people you see around you because it has worked for XYZ. Do not think that it's going to do wonders for you. It might initially, but then it's also going to tank your hormones and put you in in a state where your hormones are disrupted. So do it with some kind of, educate yourself a little more on how to use that tool, and then you can fast. Emotional eating. What can we do for emotional eating? This is a very, a thing that we all do. We are already going through a lot of stress. We have a lot going on hormonally in the body, and we want to eat because we are emotional. What most of us don't realize is we don't address those emotions. We think we can swim through that phase and somehow make it happen. We feel that let me just hang in there and fight it out. And 1 year or 2 year or 3 year or 10 years down the line, I'm done with this. And I will be on the other side of this river. But what we fail to understand is by the time you cross that river, the damage is already done because we haven't addressed those emotions. So in the Asian context, the Indian Chinese context, we very strongly believe that emotions have a lot to do with hormonal health and organ well-being. So, for example, anger is related to your liver, accumulating anger. Um, Being very worried all the time could be related to the gut. Being very scared could be related to the kidneys. So, there are these emotions attached to how our organs are doing. And if we address those emotions well in time, we will be able to kind of, peel those layers and get that out of the way, recover. And we also won't be doing that emotional eating, because that's just a it's just an outcome of what we're already going through, and we want to address the root cause. So maybe using tools like meditation or breath work, all these things really help. Personally, I meditate, and it has helped me a lot when it comes to emotional well-being. So if any of you are interested, feel free to ping me, and I can tell you more about that. But yeah, please find your zone. I mean, go out and seek and understand what you can do to address that emotional uh, state of mind. And that emotional health is also very important in the long run to address your hormonal health, because 10-15 years down the line, if these emotions are kind of being accumulated and not addressed, yes, it will lead to stress, hormonal belly, hormonal disruption, but it can also put us in a state where we get very scary diagnosis from the doctor, which is a very big price that we're paying if we have not addressed that in time. So I have just one more slide before that, before we end, and that is growing young inside out. So many of us are worried about, how we look and how we feel. My skin is, it's aging, wrinkling, I'm losing hair, not feeling great. What do I do? Well, it's whatever we have spoken of so far addresses both the outer appearance as well as the inner well-being. Sugar and processed foods are number one on the list that we don't want to do, because sugar kind of bonds with the collagen in our skin and creates what we call as the advanced glycation end products, very appropriately called age, because that's what ages is. So staying away from sugar processed foods will help us. Nutrient depletion is a big reason for us to feel old inside as well as outside. So want to make sure we have all our micronutrients, our iron is in balance, magnesium is in balance, potassium is in balance, we're zinc, and we're taking care of all that. Do not eat fried foods. That's consuming a lot of fried food will lead to oxidation and free radical damage. So fried foods contain what are called acrylamides, and they accelerate how we age because of the free radical damage. And how do we take care of free radical damage? By eating foods that are high in antioxidants. So a lot of green vegetables, lots of seasonal fruit, foods that are high in antioxidants can help us address this particular issue. And gut health, prebiotics, again, vegetables and fruits, probiotics, fermented foods, staying away from dairy that's not clean. Gluten intolerance is something we see it's very common in people. We may not have been tested for celiac, but we can still be intolerant to gluten. So if we feel our gut health is not improving, maybe kind of, removing these foods and testing the waters might make a big difference. And of course, addressing stress. So that brings us to the end of today's presentation. This is just a summary. I think we can open the floor for some questions now.
It was a wonderful presentation, Anita. Really enjoyed how you put everything together. And maybe if we can have the last slide up,
the last
folks
slide.
can just, that was really kind of summing up everything. And yeah, so when everyone kind of takes in everything, I just have a couple questions, and then meanwhile, if you don't want to unmute and ask the question, you can post your questions in the chat, and we can go in order. And so one thing you were talking about is foods rich in progesterone. like tofu or something. And there are families, and of course, we all have our men in the our families. How would that affect, like, if you're going to eat foods which are rich in progesterone? Because would it affect like boys' health? Like I know
Yes. Yeah.
here, yeah. So that is something I would like.
Yeah, it's a great question. So men also have these hormones. We also have the estrogen and the progesterone. Just give me a second. Yeah, they also have the estrogen, progesterone going on in their body, and when they are exposed to xenoestrogens or when they don't have great gut health, y- boys or men can also have estrogen dominant situation where their progesterone is tanking and their estrogen stays high. This can happen to teenage boys. And as they run into their 20s and 30s, it can affect the amount of testosterone they make. And if they don't make enough testosterone, it's going to start affecting their muscular health. It will affect their overall performance in, mental focus, whatever they do, it's not going to work. So, and also situations like breast cancer, it's common even in men because of the kind of chemicals we're exposed to. Our teenage boys are also exposed to all those chemicals that our teenage girls are exposed to. Not a good thing because you're blocking their receptor sites. There are a lot of xenoestrogens entering the bloodstream. Blocking those receptor sites would again mean making more androgens. More androgens means more estrogen production, more aromatase, will lead to breast tissue issues and erectile dysfunction or prostate enlargement. All this is possible because of being in an estrogen dominant situation, not having enough progesterone in the body. So this can happen to boys and men as well. So it's very important to make sure, I think more than anything else, more than what we eat, it's very important to make sure that we don't expose ourselves to these foods. So eat clean. If you're eating dairy and meats, go for grass-fed meats, go for organic dairy as much as you can. Go for eggs that are pasture raised because the toxins accumulate in the fat and that's what you're consuming and that's what is going to release and create havoc in the body. So go for clean products, go for produce that is not exposed to as many chemicals. You can look up the Environmental Working Group is a website, EWG. You can go there and see the foods that, because not everybody can buy everything organic. So there are some foods that are more prone to kind of accumulating those toxins like strawberries and peaches and citrus fruits. They have the tendency to retain more toxins. So those foods you can do organic, but bananas and avocados and certain foods you could go and pick up the options that are not organic. So boys also, yes, we need to kind of give that care because we are seeing a lot of breast cancer kind of issues in men as well.
Yeah. So, and you were telling earlier that for the, while we're in the slide, you were talking about thyroid health. How necessary is iodized salt? Do you think like there is something like a become like a norm, like when you go to pick up salt, you are given these two options of iodized salt and the other version of salt. Do we have to pick the iodized salt or not? That would be my question. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it gives it makes people go after the iodized salt when it is not there. So I'm just curious, is it something of a necessity for our people living in this region or not?
Yeah. So iodine is a very important mineral. We need iodine, not just for thyroid health, even for maintaining progesterone levels also, we need iodine. Iodine earlier used to come from the soil. So we had soil that was rich once upon a time. Our soil is kind of deteriorating overall all across the globe. And so the produce that we get is less in iodine. Obviously, food that is coming from coastal areas or soil that is closer to the seashore will have more iodine. So it will vary. If you go and test the produce maybe made somewhere near the coast will have more iodine than made elsewhere. Artificially, are we making sure that our soil is being treated? Yes, people are trying to do that now through certain farming techniques where we can make sure that our produce is more iodine rich. But is it enough? Is it available as easily? No, it's not. So what can you do? And should you get it from salt? So the iodine that comes in salt is coming from is synthetic. The iodine is synthetic. It's not natural. And that's not going to do your body any good. In fact, it might even harm you more. So how do you get your iodine? You should try eating sea vegetables, seafood. Very hard, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, it's very hard. So one is try to increase your vegetable and fruit intake as much as you can. And after that, try using sea vegetables. Experiment with sea vegetables. It could be seaweed or
Seafood salad.
use powders in your salads or even in your dals. You can sprinkle that seaweed powder if you can't eat seaweed as it is. And seaweed also, again, you have the processed seaweed, you have the good seaweed.
Yeah.
Again, what oil are they using in making that as a snack? Is that snack sufficient? So there's a whole lot that we can see with respect to availability and our own preference. Seaweed is not an easy food for a lot of Indian people. They say it smells and we can't have it. Yeah. But yes, iodine is a very tricky mineral to kind of have enough of, and we have to figure out ways to take care of it. Worst case scenario, somebody who has thyroid issues, and if their doctor is okay with it, I ask them to take a sea kelp tablet, which is it's seaweed, but it's coming in a supplement form. So sometimes we have to take certain supplements when we can't eat that food. Yeah.
Right. Next question that I had is, you were telling about estrogen dominance, and you're saying that there are these women hygiene products that have that we are exposed to, and menstruating women, we are exposed to the the sanitary pads that we use. And what about the tampons? Like, young women tend to move towards tampons. So is it something that you can use on a regular basis, or is it something you use only on certain situations?
So if somebody wants to make the choice of using tampons, one is go for the ones that are made of organic material. That's very important that you make that choice. Second, it's like using contact lens. You don't want to sleep with your contact lens on. You want to make sure that they're clean and then you put them on. It's the same kind of discipline you must have when you use tampons. So you don't forget you have it inside. Make sure you take it out. I think they work best when you have a heavier flow. If you have a scanty flow, they also hurt a bit when you take it out. So you have to kind of experiment with that area. I know a lot of youngsters love using that because they can swim with those on, they can play sport with it on, and it really doesn't bother them. So I think that way it's great that they have that choice that they can make. But it's very important to also have that discipline on making sure that you don't forget you have it inside of you and take it out and, kind of use a clean product. So then I think it's all right. Yeah.
Maybe we can open the questions if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question.
I can see some question. Somebody's
Yes,
asking, how can we help young children to grow in height? Like I said, most of us, men, women, children, everybody, we are walking around protein deficient. We do not eat as much protein. And I think kids can be very picky sometimes, and it's very hard for the parents to make sure that they get enough protein, and then they start depending on protein shakes or protein powders, or they're not good for the body because they are loaded with a lot of, again, harmful substances. If you look at the ingredient list, they have a lot of sugar, and that does more harm than good. So first of all, I think it's important to teach ourselves how to shop and stock our kitchen and pantries with healthy stuff, being more protein centric, cooking with more protein options. And I think only when we do that, we can also pass that on to our children. I don't think we do it ourselves as adults. Not most, I mean, I can say 100% of the people that I come across are protein deficient. They don't eat as much protein. And that's the reason why women have a lot of muscle loss or sarcopenia as they age. yeah, we don't have that strength.
Yeah. So there's a question which is, what are your thoughts on clean and pure whey protein powder? I also want to add, like, how important is milk? Does everybody have to? Because I know whey comes from milk. So do we? What are the other sources of calcium when you can't? I mean, when you want to avoid milk, or because sometimes I have heard that milk can also create some bloating. So if you can clarify that.
Milk is a tricky food these days because milk is not as clean and healthy as it used to be several hundred years ago. We've kind of commercialized that industry a lot, and we feed those cows a whole lot of GMO foods. So if you see one slide I had earlier, um, yes, avoid GMO products. Soy, corn, peanut, sugar, beets. This is what soy and corn is what they feed those cows, right? So you may not be eating it, but the milk you're drinking has those GMO remnants in it, and that is settling down in your own body, which might end up creating a havoc on that estrogen and progesterone. So unless you know a farm where they are taking good care of those cows. It's not commercialized, and that milk is going to be expensive. They are grass fed, and the quality that it's organic. A little bit is fine, but I don't certainly believe in guzzling gallons of milk. It's not going to help us grow.
Yeah.
The milk we need is from the mother. And if a mother can breastfeed her baby, that's the best option. And you should do it for as long as you can, because formula again has its own downsides. Long-term microbiome damage can happen when we overdo the formula. It's more important that mother's milk is the best. That's what helps us grow. And you can only have it to a certain age. And after that, you shift to more natural foods. There is more calcium in yogurt compared to milk. And yogurt is better because of that change of milk to yogurt through the fermentation process. You would have taken care of some of those harmful substances. So even then, I think you should go for the right kind of milk to make good quality organic yogurt. Or yogurt would have double the amount of calcium than milk. In that 1 cup of yogurt, you're consuming double the amount of calcium. Other sources of calcium is going to be your nuts and seeds.
Okay. So how would
And
you answer this whey protein question? Like she's asking.
whey protein is very inflammatory. I personally stay away from whey protein. I advise my clients also to stay away from whey protein. It's not really going to help. Yeah, there's more harm
So
than good.
this the next question is uh, how often can you consume um, tofu, especially children, since soy is high in phytoestrogens?
Yes, you should go for the organic option, and tofu, tempeh, go for organic. Fermented tofu is a better option. Always a fermented food is better than the regular one. So tempeh is good. And change the variety. You don't have to do tofu every single day, but use other fermented foods like kimchi or sauerkraut. Those are very important to have, and rotate it. Maybe twice a week is fine, and then the rest of the time you should kind of have other foods. Yeah.
And then this question's been asked twice: how to improve sleep in young adults, boys specifically?
I think that's a very big
Long topic.
question. Yeah, no, I think it
Yeah.
has a lot to do with what we are going through ourselves as parents.
Right.
So I don't see sleep being prioritized anywhere.
Hide the phone.
Yeah,
Hide the phone by
not
6 o'clock.
not just the phone. I think children usually pick up what they see, right? So they see the dad and mom working late into the night because that's how the
Oh, yeah.
world the
That's good.
yeah, the work culture has become such where you have late night meetings because you're trying to kind of establish contact with teams across the world, and your children see that, and they pick up from you. But I think when we were young kids, it was like lights out at 9 is lights out at 9.
Yeah.
Everybody's maximum parents are kind of just trying to make sure everybody's in bed, and if they're also off to bed, and then we all woke up early. So I think that discipline is not there because we don't have it ourselves as adults. I still see some households where, parents, even if they have to stay up, they make sure the kids are in bed by 8 p.m. I think that's the next best option. Teach them to make sleep a priority. It's not easy, and as teenagers grow and they get their own distractions, they have their own distractions and their own workload coming up, high schoolers, it's hard for them to make sleep a priority. So if that is the case, then make sure they nap whenever possible. Because what happens is they sleep less in the night, and daytime when you ask them to nap, when they have half an hour, 1 hour, they say, no, I want to go out with a friend, or I want to spend time on my phone because I didn't get to do this today. So making sleep a priority, even if you have to work late into the night, make sure you take those cat naps whenever you can, because I think that's very, very important. If you cannot do any of these, if you can sleep, that's the best, because all the repair work happens during sleep.
Okay, next question is sesame seeds good source of calcium?
Yes.
If yes, how can we eat each day? Also accompanying this question with sesame seeds, I'd like to ask, sometimes I've seen that sesame seeds also causes breast tenderness in some women. Is
So
it in any way related, or?
So it's very hard to point your finger at one thing and say that causes breast tenderness. Breast tenderness is caused when you have that high estrogen, low progesterone. So,
Oh.
like I said, gaining weight around a certain section of the body, or having breast tenderness. These are all signs and symptoms that we already have some kind of hormonal disruption, and there is more estrogen and there is lesser progesterone. Is it because of sesame alone? May not be. It may be related to a whole lot of other things. We cannot consume sesame in massive amounts. A little bit of sesame is actually good for the for our body, but may not be in all seasons also. So winter season, sesame does good. Summer season, it might overheat your body, according to the Ayurvedic principles. So,
Yes.
you need to kind of eat according to season. That's another important thing. Eat what's in season, and eat when you're, listen to your body and eat according to that. So sesame is good. Most people like to eat it along with jaggery, but again, jaggery is also a form of sugar, and overdoing on the jaggery can also put you in that insulin resistance mode. So is it the jaggery or is it the sesame that is causing the problem? We don't know, because that there can be a whole lot of things happening there with your insulin resistance, your microbiome, and then again your estrogen progesterone imbalance. So it's very hard to put your finger on one particular food. I think sesame, a good way to consume that is you can put it over your curries, or over your, or whatever you're cooking. You can just put that powder, or you can make a masala out of that sesame and eat it
So,
with a
like,
bit of rice.
how much of it? That's what is. How much can you eat per day? How much sesame
Or
per day can you?
two tablespoons is good enough. 2 to 3
Per
tablespoons.
person, you mean, or like the family? Like,
So I will never make it a necessary food that I'm going to have 2 tablespoons of sesame or 2 tablespoons of flax per day, because flax is also a high estrogen food. I would, like, I do consume sesame or flax. I will never consume the two on the same day.
okay, got it.
Okay. If I have 1 tablespoon, I restrict myself to from 1 to 2 tablespoons. Sesame, I might have 2. Flax, I will stick to 1. I might just do it 2 to 3 times in a week, not every single day, because there are so many other foods that I would want to
Right.
have. Like, I want to have my I want to have more progesterone foods. I don't want to do more estrogen foods. So the problem is, people focus again. The question itself is telling me the focus is, oh, my estrogen is dipping, so should I increase my estrogen foods? No, you don't have to do anything there. Increase your progesterone foods. Focus more on consuming your pumpkin seeds, your sunflower seeds. They are good with your progesterone. Consume salmon and, sweet potatoes, and increase the variety of fresh produce, vegetables, seeds, and nuts to kind of bring in that balance.
Okay, and you spoke about fish, and there's a question about farm-raised fish or wild-caught fish.
Yeah, always wild caught, always wild caught, because fish, when it is farm raised, they are living in a very contaminated environment. And that's not good. Again, that can lead to a lot of, it's an artificial zone. It's not a natural zone. A wild caught fish is in a larger body of water, so there is lesser contamination. Even over there, your Pacific, your Atlantic waters are more contaminated as compared to your Alaskan waters. So it's very important to understand when you go to the fisheries, if I live close to a body of water that is contaminated with fish, I would want to make that choice of fish that holds least amount of toxins. Certain fishes could probably take in more toxins and hold on to more toxins. Avoid those. So I think one most common one is think shark and stuff like that. You don't want to do that. Tuna also accumulates. It has a lot of toxins inside. So mercury contamination is a big danger with fish. But if you're going for wild caught fish, sardines, halibut, salmon, mackerel, these are all good choices.
So someone's asking how much protein is needed for a 3-year-old?
3-year-old, you go calculate according to their weight. So if they are 3-year-old, will weigh how much? Say maybe 15, 20 pounds maybe. So they should get 20 grams of protein a day.
The next question is, if you make tea with just milk, are we still getting all the benefits of milk?
I will never consume milk for its benefits. So I have kind of come out of that zone that I must drink milk. I must give. You're having tea because you enjoy tea. You're not doing it for the benefit of having milk. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
So I think it's
question
757. Yeah.
Someone's asking, how can females reduce high testosterone levels?
So that question, is it because they've been diagnosed with high testosterone, or do they think they have high testosterone? What is the idea behind that? Because, it's very hard for women to get high on testosterone. We don't make testosterone. If we made testosterone like men, we would also have we would build body like them, So a lot of women, when they're asked to do strength training, they say, oh, will I become very muscular and bulky? You will not, because you don't have as much testosterone.
Right.
Cannot. Women can never become like that. And if there are wrestlers and women wrestlers who are doing that, they probably have a lot of synthetic testosterone that they are injecting into themselves to become bulky. But for a normal woman who goes and lifts weight, you are not going to get bulky because you don't have testosterone naturally. So why, I don't know from where that question is coming. Is it a special case where that person is going through something? I don't know. We would have to kind of look at more background details to answer that question.
Right. I think if you can, there's one last question. How to avoid bloating and gas? This will be the last question.
Yeah, bloating and gas is related to your gut microbiome. So not consuming enough soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, not consuming enough water, sometimes not even stretching out enough. All those can lead to bloating and gas. Not sleeping enough, being very stressed out emotionally, that can also lead to a lot of bloating. Constant eating, again, the reasons can be many, like we discussed, can lead to bloating. Not eating the right kind of foods can lead to bloating. Yeah, so gut is a very sensitive topic, because gut health is in a way, it's like they call it the second brain of our body. So everything that we any hormonal function or any function in the body kind of comes down to having a good microbiome. So if you have a good microbiome, you will not bloat. Microbiome has about 100 trillion bacteria. It's an ecosystem in itself. In fact, we are defined by the microbiome that we carry. So if you have good bacteria, more in number in your microbiome, then you have a microbiome that's flourishing. But because of antibiotic use, if you have overused a lot of medicines in your childhood, if you were not breastfed, all these are contributors towards a microbiome that is slowly kind of shifting its balance, with the harmful bacteria increasing and the good bacteria deteriorating. That can lead to bloating and gas. Yeah, so these are some reasons.
Yeah, we seem to be getting some more questions. If you are open to receiving it via email, can you share your last slide, which had your information?
Yeah, sure.
So people can note it down and Yes. So that is Anita's website, and I think she's also active on Instagram, so you can contact her for more information on that. Yeah. Thank you very much, Anita. It was a great pleasure talking to you. I heard a lot more from you than from some doctors, because you were talking in a very wholesome way, explaining.
Do you want to pay less taxes out of your salary or business income this year? You see, when you go to the CA at the end. Okay. So great, guys. Hello, everyone. Just want you're going to be needing when you're going to be.
Okay.
Hey guys, you need to go on the mute. We can hear you.
I didn't know if he was asking a question or
Yeah.
not, so I was just.
Yeah, no, I thanks for this opportunity, Vara and Maha. It was nice talking about this subject tonight, because I think it's very much needed. The awareness is not there. I see that in a lot of my clients, and I think we would be in better control of our situation. We would know how to eat better and have a better ride in our perimenopausal phase and deal with things that we need to in a better way. So yeah, I'm glad I was able to talk to all of you about this. Good questions asked. So if you need any more your questions to be answered, or you want to talk to me, you know where to find me.
Thank you so much, Anita. That was a truly eye-opener session, actually. I was captivated throughout the entire session. So especially the use of visuals and graphics you were showing were really, really very effective. And thank you so much for creating such a valuable learning experience for all of us, especially on a Friday evening. You made us just stick to the computer. I'm excited to put to practicals from what I've learned today. Thank you very much one more time. The theories, the concepts, the health secrets were really informative and engaging.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time to prepare so much and present it to us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a wonderful evening and weekend to everybody here.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.